As Republicans still dedicated to the tradition of revolution, we make no apology for our existence, and why should we? 25 years on from the Good Friday failure, those who stood firm and remained resolute have been the subject of endless ridicule, innuendo and criminalisation by those now widely regarded as the British-funded gatekeepers. British and Free State harassment and intimidation is nothing new for Republicans, but what we're seeing more and more of is the criminalisation policy directed at the family members, including children of Republicans. Home invasions, raids, stop and searches, bank closures, the weaponisation of statutory bodies, and employers being contacted are all common occurrences for Republicans and our families. This is clearly a policy put in place by the British Crown Forces and their Free State counterparts, led by MI5 as they attempt to break republicanism.
Gerard O'Connor and I'm from Tala. I have no involvement in politics at the moment. I'm just a member of the Independent Workers Union and a community activist in the local area in Tala.
My name is Olga Howlett. I'm from Kilnamona in Tala, and I have no involvement with any party whatsoever in politics.
When they raided the house, I obviously wasn't there and there was nobody in the home at the time. When I got home, I seen the damage that they did to the house. They broke in the front door. I have no political involvement whatsoever, so I couldn't understand why they even raided the house.
I went in to feed the dogs and the door was wide open. But when I went into the house was in bits. And I started getting afraid. I thought that his house had been, somebody had broken into his house and had robbed his house. So I rang my eldest son, and he only lives down the road. He came up and we looked through the cameras to see what we could see. And it was only then that I realised the house had been raided. You could just see them in and out of the house. There was loads of Gardaí, in the riot gear, in his house and in his back garden, putting ladders over the back garden. It was just inside the house when we went into the different rooms in the house and we noticed that kind of anything that was anyway Republican, if you had a picture, maybe of Bobby Sands or a wallet or something like that, they were all out on display. There were violins and barons all thrown about, particularly in the top bedroom. Stuff had been absolutely pulled around in that room.
The second raid happened to be in hospital at the time. I had taken a mini stroke, so they wouldn't let me sort myself out. But there was a lot of damage done this time. When they got into the house, they broke up anything they could basically find. I had a Christmas village set up for the grandchildren, little figurines and little Christmas houses. They broke several of them deliberately, even going as far as snapping the heads off some of the little figurines and leaving them there. So they basically wrecked that coming to Christmas. And it was deliberate during that particular raid. Because I was in hospital, my ex-wife had a key off the door, and we have video evidence which we presented to the Ombudsman, the Garda Ombudsman, where my ex-wife was pleading with them not to break the door in, that she had a key for the door. Rather than them listen to my ex-wife, she pointed a gun at her head and told her to get back.
We're inside. We're inside. We're inside now. We're inside.
I have a key.
We're inside now.
I have a key for the door.
We're inside.
I have a key for the door. I have a key for the door.
I saw them coming in with the guns. There was somebody had them pointing at me when they were telling me to get back into my house. Like every time a car would go by, I'd be up because I thought they were going to come back and come into this house. I live here. I have my youngest daughter lives here. I have a granddaughter that lives here, and I have a 34-year-old special needs daughter that lives here. She's a mental disability, so we try to shield her from a lot of stuff. It was like she was dealing with her dad being in hospital, and sometimes it's hard to explain things to her. But then she saw videos of what had happened in her dad's house, so she was obviously terrified too that it was going to happen in here. And for days she'd ask, and you knew by her, you just know by her when she's afraid. And for days, probably weeks, she was afraid after this happened. And you know, it's hard, like trying to you can't explain. It's hard to kind of explain to her exactly where I understand. Well, I don't understand, but I know why it's happening. I can't explain that to her. You know, that part is difficult. So, and it's not fair. And then obviously some of the other, because most of my family, most of my children live in Killamana, and I'm sure there were one or two of them were thinking, is this going to happen to us as well? So there was fear around that.
There was guarded cars parked not outside my house, but about two or three houses up, and they had a big presence on the road and was shouting Gardaí, Gardaí, and made a big scene about it. I'm looking at my neighbours are well aware of what happened. It was a visual thing they did this time, and it was obviously pure intimidation, and to let the neighbours know that there's something untoward going on in my home, which certainly there isn't. As I said, I haven't been involved in politics for years.
My name's Paddy Gallagher, and I'm a public representative for the Revolutionary Republican Party CERU and the Irish Republican Prisoners Welfare Association. I've been involved in Republican politics since I've been about 15 or 16, definitely since my teenage years. I originally became involved in community politics and community activism before naturally progressing into Republican politics and Republican activism. I've now found myself a member of the Republican Party CERU and heavily involved in the welfare of Irish Republican prisoners.
My name's Stephen Murney. I'm a Republican activist and community worker from Newry. I'm also a former Republican prisoner, and I'm currently the national chairperson of the Revolutionary Republican Party CERU. I became politically aware when I was a child. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so it was a common feature to have British soldiers on patrol with RUC members on the streets. And living in a heavily militarised area, there were constantly army helicopters in the sky. I grew up in a Republican family, and some of my earliest memories are of family members being harassed by the British Army and RUC on an almost daily basis. The RUC would be waiting at the school gates as my mother left me to school, and it was her that they were waiting on. So she'd be searched at the school gates each morning in front of all the other parents, and again my school bag would be emptied out. Now bear in mind that I was only primary school age, and this type of thing went on for years. Ironically, it's now come full circle. 30 years on, my own children are today being pulled out of my car to have their school bags searched, and to watch me being searched by the same British forces.
I've been stopped with my children in the car. I've had my family home raided, my children and wife assaulted inside our family home as well by crime forces, and I found myself hauled off to interrogation centres across the occupied 6 counties.
My name is Claire McCall and I'm from Derry. I'm currently a member of CERU, and I'm also involved in the RPWA to help Republican prisoners and their families. Sadly, our children have witnessed firsthand the harassment we go through. They have experienced dozens of stop and searches and house raids over the years. It's now at the stage where our children are terrified at the very sight of a PSNI. It would be fair to say that our children experience more stop and searches and house raids than most adults. I've had direct approaches from MI5. A couple of years ago, they approached me as I was out walking with my two young children, one of who was in a pram. My other child ended up being injured during the incident as he fell when we were trying to get away.
What I'm going through now could be best described as intense. For example, I'm currently facing a number of Republican charges and I'm currently on bail. One of the bail conditions prevents me from attending any political gathering of more than 6 people. So I can't even attend this event in Brussels, as I would be in breach of bail. So apologies to everyone for not being able to attend in person. If I did attend, I would be arrested and imprisoned on my return to Ireland. As it stands, I've been stopped and searched hundreds of times over the years. On quite a lot of these occasions, my young children have been with me, and they too are forced out of the car to watch me being searched. Out of hundreds of stop and searches, they have never once found a single thing. Just to put it into perspective, in the past 10 years alone, there have been over 370,000 people forcibly stopped and searched by the PSNI. That's the equivalent of 1/5 of the population of the occupied 6 counties. On an almost nightly basis, they will drive up and down or sit outside our family home, so there's constant surveillance. I've been arrested and held around 6 times in the past year. On the first occasion, I was charged under the so-called Terrorism Act for giving a political speech at a 1916 Easter commemoration. And the 5 times since I've been arrested, I've been released. But they've accused me of bail breaches, which I believe is a tactic to have me eventually interned in Maghaberry prison again. After Easter last year, my home in Newry was targeted by the PSNI in the early hours of the morning. I was home alone with 2 of my kids aged 2 and 4 when I heard them hammering the door in. I looked out of the bedroom window and there were dozens of PSNI members outside the house. One of them was wearing a red helmet and carrying a chainsaw. He was walking up the garden path. Now this guy was preparing to cut off my front door with his chainsaw. I had to shout at them that I had 2 young kids inside and that I'd be down to open the door. The reply to that was, hurry the fuck up then. I have also had bank accounts closed at the behest of MI5. My 17-year-old son, who's completely non-political, also had his shut down at the same time. Like, I work a part-time job in the public sector. There's no logical reason for my bank account to be frozen, other than to put me and my family under political pressure.
I've had my bank account. I've actually had 2 bank accounts closed recently. That actually happened within the past 8 or 9 months. I haven't been detained again by British Crown Forces. My home was searched, and as a result of that, 2 bank accounts were closed within the space of a week, stemming from that house raid. So these are issues that continue to affect Republican activists, not just myself, but obviously hundreds, if not more, across both the occupied 6 counties and the 26 counties of Ireland.
My name is Brian Kennett and I'm from Dublin. I'm involved in Cyril and also the Irish Republican Prisoners Welfare Association. In the past, I've had jobs where the Gardaí have gone in and spoke to my employers, and you know, a good number of years ago, went into prospective employers and you know, encouraged them not to employ me.
This obviously has a wider impact, particularly on employment. I found myself without employment in recent years due to the fact that I am a Republican activist. Crown Forces and indeed MI5 have contacted previous employers in a bid to get me removed from the job. They were successful in many attempts on doing that, and all our jobs where I have applied for, some of which are local companies where I would know the employers, they have came back to me and said that the Crown Forces have contacted them to pretty much scare them into not employing myself. So obviously this has had an impact on my employability.
My first experiences with MI5 started about 15 years ago. One of my neighbours was approached in the centre of Newry by a plainclothed agent. They proceeded to threaten him, and they told him that they would stop his social security benefits if he didn't provide information to them about my movements. Times I left the house, when I returned, the reg numbers of cars that came to my home and things like that. Thankfully, my neighbour came to me straight away and we reported the incident to legal representatives and the media. I've had family members also approached in similar fashion by these sinister state agents. My stepfather, he's been approached on numerous occasions by MI5. In the past few years, the harassment from MI5 in particular has very much intensified. They have followed me abroad on numerous occasions. In 2021, I was in Lanzarote with my dad, celebrating his birthday. On one of the mornings, I was in a cafe on my own having breakfast when two members of the MI5 approached me. I videoed the incident and chased them out onto the street. As soon as I did that, I was literally pounced on by undercover Spanish police and prevented from confronting the MI5 agents, and they were then able to make their escape. The very fact that the undercover Spanish police were able to appear on the scene so quickly, within seconds, it makes it obvious that they were involved in the entire operation, and they were in place to ensure that MI5 could approach me without interference. Then last year, me and my partner visited Santa Ponsa for a short break. On our second day, an MI5 agent left an envelope containing another card and a sum of money at the reception of our hotel. In January of this year, I visited Paris for a weekend. I landed at Beauvais Airport and straight away the hassle started. The French police claimed they found traces of explosives in my luggage after it was swabbed, which was nonsense. I was then led away by several members of the French police. I was taken to an outbuilding that was separate from the main airport. I was held in a room with several armed police and two plainclothed individuals. Now, these two individuals in plain clothes were from the Directorate General for External Security, DGSE. Now, this group would be regarded as the French Secret Service, and it's their equivalent of MI5. I was questioned for several hours about my employment, family, the reason for visiting Paris, who I would be meeting with, and my political beliefs and activities. During the questioning, they even went as far as threatening to deport me and banning me from France for failing to answer their questions. The most recent incident occurred just last month when I visited the Basque Country with a few friends. As soon as we were getting off the plane at Bilbao, we noticed several members of the Spanish police checking passports. I knew straight away that they were going to pull me in. My passport, phone, belongings were seized before I was taken to an interview room for interrogation. It was here that the Spanish police stood guard as a plain-clothed individual, identifying himself as Spanish Special Branch, questioned me. I was quizzed on my reasons for being in the Basque Country, who I'd be meeting with, where I'd be staying, and if I'd be attending any events. Absurdly, they claimed that they knew all about me and my so-called terrorism. This went on for almost 2 hours before I was finally released. 3 days later, when I was making my return journey, things took a more sinister turn. Just as I was boarding my flight home to Ireland, I was again apprehended and led away by Spanish police. I was taken to a room where I was confronted by the same two detectives who questioned me 3 days previously. But disturbingly, two MI5 operatives were also present in the room on this occasion. The MI5 agents accused me of being in the IRA. They threatened me with imprisonment, stating, "If you don't walk away, you'll be locked up like your friend Alan." That's a sinister reference to the CERU National Executive member Alan Lundy, who was recently interned by remand on trumped up charges. and he now finds himself held captive in McGalbury. Furthermore, the MI5 operatives also stated that every time I travel abroad, I will suffer the same treatment and harassment in airports wherever I go. So now we have a situation where the authorities in other countries are colluding with the MI5 to target Irish citizens abroad. EU citizens are being targeted in EU countries by state agents of a non-EU country. And this is done in collusion with the authorities in various European countries. This is something that should be highlighted and condemned by all right-thinking people.
My name is Saoirse. I'm from South Irish City in Dublin. Personally, I'm not involved in any political organisation, any political affiliation. I've been stopped and searched many of occasions, usually when my partner, who unfortunately has had frequent hospital admissions, they tend to put a lot of pressure on me when he's not around. One example of that would be, I was at a health clinic, I had left, I was in a severe amount of pain, I have a long-standing severe disability. They blocked me in, they wouldn't let the car leave. They then opened all the doors, they took my disabled badge, told me it was fake. Went on to tell me that my partner was involved in various untrue activities. I then said, if you don't, I vehemently told them I was, in severe pain, I needed to leave, I needed to get home. They wouldn't let me leave. It's only when I took my own phone out and threatened to ring 999 to call for medical assistance did they leave. Their professionalism was not evident. There was no ethics, there was no equality, there was nothing. I felt a desperate sense of injustice and helplessness, wondering why elements of the state would try and bully, harass, sully me when I actually don't have any reason to be harassed by anybody.
I was on the roundabout acting as volunteer youth coordinator, as there was a sectarian football match in the roundabout, and I was there to ease tension when I was set upon by ground forces. They attacked me, slammed me to the ground, knelt on my neck, arrested me up in the car and assaulted me again in the car when I was taken to the local barracks. I was released on strict bail. I can't enter Craigan or the bog, and can't be in the company of more than 4 people in a public area. I can't attend political rallies or protests. I can't fulfill my role as youth coordinator. I also can't visit family or my partner who lives in Craigan.
Guards from time to time have raided the house. Sometimes I feel that the reason why they raid the house is to embarrass you in your own community, in your own neighbourhood. I suppose to demonise you in front of your neighbours, to give the impression that there's something amiss or something untoward going on. I think quite the opposite. I have a lot of support in my own community. I'm a community activist, and it doesn't have the desired effect that I think it would. My neighbours support me and understand that I'm an active Republican.
There was an incident when they raided our home. We were going on holidays the next day. I had all plane tickets, I had the money separate, my mum's money separate, my son's money separate. They took every single penny from the home. I had to apply for legal advice and then legal action into the Police Property Act, and I had to pay a significant sum to the legal community to retrieve my own money back.
I had to have a number of harassment and stop and searches from the Special Detective Unit, or the Special Branch as it's known. It happens on a quite regular basis. I've had my house raided on numerous occasions. Never resulting in anything being found or anything like that, or even when I'm being stopped in the car or when I'm out walking, nothing has been discovered as such. As an extension of the harassment of myself, my immediate family members have been harassed on a regular basis, on a continuous basis, and again it's to get at myself and to put pressure on me to desist from my political activities.
What I don't understand is the agenda that the state has. I've never been involved. Anyway, I don't even have a parking ticket. Like I've nothing, clean sheet, clean rap. So I feel that because I support my partner in his political endeavours, that they're actually punishing me or trying to isolate my partner from the family to put pressure on him.
It's difficult, but I just see it as part of repressive action by the state to silence people who may have a different point of view from, I suppose, what the state says is the normal point of view.
The sole purpose of these targeted raids, violent attacks, and the detention of loved ones is simply to disrupt family life and cause tension. However, the actions of the occupiers only reaffirm our strong, traditionally held Republican beliefs. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter.